Good afternoon. My name is Alex, and this is my analysis of literary and historical references in Dante's Inferno, Canto 19. So I'll start with a brief overview of the plot of Canto 19. So in Canto 19, Virgil is guiding Dante through the third ditch of the eighth circle of hell. When Dante arrives in this eighth circle of hell, third ditch, he sees people sticking out of the ground upside down, their feet set alight, and he expresses a desire to go and speak to one of these people. Virgil takes him down to speak to Pope Nicholas III, a corrupt pope, and Pope Nicholas III initially mistakes Dante for Pope Boniface VIII. Dante makes it clear that he is not actually Pope Boniface VIII, and then Nicholas describes that this is where Simonists, or those who have bribed their way into church positions of power or use their position within the church for financial gain, are punished for eternity. And Nicholas believes that Boniface VIII will be the one to replace him at the top of the stack, describing that as each new corrupt pope arrives, the popes who've been there longer are pushed deeper into the rock, and the new popes that come will be put at the top, upside down, with flame on their feet. And Nicholas also believes that Pope Clement V, an even more corrupt pope, will replace Boniface VIII at the top of the stack. Dante then goes on a tirade against simony, which pleases Virgil, and the two of them move on to a new section of hell. So the very first reference that Dante makes within Canto 19 is to Simon Magus and the sin of simony. Dante believes that Dante just opens his Canto 19 by stating, "You, Magic Simon, and your sorry school, there you all are, well set, pocket three." This is calling out Simon Magus, a figure from the Book of Acts in the Bible, who tried to bribe the apostles to give him the power of the Holy Spirit. So Simon saw that the Spirit was given by the laying on of the apostles' hands and offers them money, saying, "Give me the power too, so that everyone I place my hands on may receive the Holy Spirit." But he is told by Peter that how dare you try to acquire God's gift with money? This is where the sin of simony comes from, and this is what Dante is calling out. And this, I think, is one of the most important references in Dante's Inferno, Canto 19, because this is the entire point. The people who are being punished in this third ditch are Simon and his sorry school. So, like I said, Dante is clearly very against the sin of simony. In fact, puts it so low that he puts murder above simony. Murderers are punished in the seventh circle of hell. Simonists and other corrupt officials are punished in the eighth circle of hell. And Dante says that were he not forbidden, he would bring still weightier words to bear in his tirade against the Simonists. Let's talk about some of the historical references in Canto 19. One of the more important ones is something called the Donation of Constantine. The Donation of Constantine was a document allegedly from Emperor Constantine I, giving the popes power over the western portion of the Roman Empire. And this is what allegedly, and according to many medieval scholars and writers such as Dante, was what gave the popes so much power that they wanted to bribe their way to those positions. Basically, gave them this lot, all this political power, made popes so much more powerful than they were before the donation of Constantine. And Dante believes that this is what led to so many corrupt popes saying, quote, "What harm you mothered Emperor Constantine? Not your conversion, but the dowry that first rich papa thus obtained from you." Now, it was revealed in the 1440s that the donation of Constantine was actually a fake, it was a forgery. But at the time Dante wrote his Inferno, this was not known, and the donation of Constantine was widely believed to be the reason for so much corruption in the papacy. Now, another thing that was really important that was happening at the time Dante wrote the Inferno was Pope Clement V and the Avignon papacy. So, like I said, Dante writes that Pope Nicholas believes Pope Clement V will come and be the most corrupt pope, taking the top spot from Nicholas and Boniface. Now, the Avignon papacy started in 1309, which is about the time that Dante wrote his Inferno, and was started by Pope Clement V, who was a pope originating in France, which is why Pope Nicholas calls him the pope from westwards. They're all here, that lawless shepherd, uglier indeed. So he comes from the west, he's coming from France. And the Avignon papacy basically moved the papacy out of Italy into France for about 70 years. And this led to a lot of French power over the church and was very heavily despised, especially by Italians like Dante, because it moved the papacy away from its traditional seat in Rome. Pope Boniface VIII is also referenced very directly in Canto 19. Nicholas believes that Dante is Boniface, saying, quote, "Is that you standing there? Are you there on your feet still, Boniface?" So Boniface VIII was very corrupt. He took land from wealthy Italians and gave it to his family. He also wrote something called the Unam Sanctum, which basically was saying that he was this unique overlord. He was the all-powerful ruler of the church, and all in the church should bow to him, Pope Boniface, not God, not Jesus. And this was, again, very corrupt. Pope Boniface VIII was seen as a very, very corrupt pope, as was Pope Nicholas III, who again is the person that Dante was speaking to throughout Canto 19. Pope Nicholas III was elected in a very controversial election at the time. Charles the Angevin, Charles the First of Anjou, a French king, had a lot of power over the papacy, and Nicholas did not actually have Charles's support, and so this was a very controversial election. Now, Pope Nicholas did fight the rule of Charles of Angevin, but it was believed, especially by Dante, that this was only because Nicholas had a lot of financial and political power that he basically bribed his way to getting. He also was a nepotist. He gave cardinalships, he gave church lands to his family and close friends. And this is kind of what he's known for, is this nepotism. Now, another really important reference that Dante makes is to Matthias, another figure from the Bible. In the book of Acts, Matthias is elected very fairly to be one of the 12 apostles after Judas is kicked out for his betrayal. So Dante references this with, quote, "Nor did St. Peter or the rest of them receive from Matthias a gold or silver piece, allotting him the place that Judas lost." This is basically seen as Dante um, making a very big contrast between Matthias, who he holds in high regard, versus the Simonists, the corrupt popes, and Simon Magus. Now, one of the things I really want to spend some time talking about is the inversion of biblical symbols within Canto 19. So Dante inverts several biblical symbols. Specifically, he inverts baptismal fonts and the Pentecost to represent this inversion the of the church and in perversion of the church that Simonists have done. So first, he describes that when he arrives in the third ditch, he sees these holes all across the rock around him that, quote, seem in radius no more nor less than fonts that, in my own beloved St. John's, allow the priest at baptisms a place to stand. Basically, he sees these baptismal fonts that are supposed to be used for cleansing, for cleaning away sin, are upside down and used to punish sinners. Again, in this inversion that the Simonists have perverted the church by being corrupted, by bribing their way to power. And also, the fire on the soles of the feet of the Simonists is a direct inversion of the Pentecost. In the book of Acts, the Pentecost is represented as fire descending with the Holy Spirit on the heads of the apostles. And in Canto 19, the flame is on the feet of the sinners of the Simonists. These are some of my references. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching.